One of the symptoms of being a girl is wanting to be a girl. Anonymous. Dear Diary, sometimes I wonder how many people in my life and around the world continue to struggle with different forms of gender dysmorphia and self-hate and loneliness because our community has not done a good enough job of providing guidance when it comes to gender, queerness, transness, and being on the non-binary spectrum. What that means is that so many people are probably not cisgender, but don't think they qualify or deserve to be a part of this community. I want to take a few moments to rectify that. To start, although some of this lack of clarity sources from very legitimate origins, such as the desire to prioritize those who are struggling the most with gender dysphoria and dysmorphia, much of it comes from a genuine lack of understanding of what it means to be cis and what it means not to be. This results in an overemphasis on the criteria of non-cisness being extreme forms of gender dysphoria. These types of experiences are so real and so important, but it's also crucial to recognize that there are a legion of other ways that one can fall outside of the gender binary, and when there isn't sufficient education and support for those who experience that, accessing one's identity and accessing this community become gatekept, both by the community itself, but also by individuals who themselves opt out because they don't think that they belong. They end up living in a place, in a margin between the cis-het world and a queer world, feeling like there's not a space for them in either. They don't think they're queer enough, they don't think they're trans enough. When we magnify that experience across millions of people around the world, we find an incalculable amount of suffering. In reality, if we accept any form of spectrum theory, the ways in which people will experience not being cis will present in a beautiful and diverse array of ways. But the common thread across all of them is simple. You simply don't feel fully 100% cis. That's it. That's enough. You're enough. Being trans, non-binary, or genderqueer doesn't require transitioning. Both because so many people can't access that, but also, and more importantly, because transitioning is simply a mechanism to help people feel aligned with their sense of self. And if your sense of self is both not cis, but also doesn't require socially acceptable forms of transitioning, acceptable, you are valid, and you belong in this community. If instead of gender dysphoria, you simply experience gender euphoria during moments you feel closer to your true gender or to your true self, you are valid, and you belong in this community. If you don't have a name or identity that fits you well yet, but you don't feel 100% symmetry with the gender you were assigned at birth, you are valid, and you belong in this community. If you want to keep gender as a vague origin point, if you want to be more than one gender at once, if you want to be different genders at different times, if you want to be no gender at all, you are valid, and you belong in this community. If you want to be sort of, kind of in between genders, if you want to keep gendered body parts, if you want to remove them, if you want to remove them but choose to keep them because the side effects of excising them are worse for you, if you're extremely gendered in your presentation, if you're extremely androgynous, if your presentation has always felt just a tiny little bit off inside, you are valid and you belong in this community. Gender is simply a line that was drawn for us at birth. If you want to cross it in any way, which is what the word trans means fundamentally at the end of the day, cross it in any way you like and know that you are loved, you deserve to be happy, and that you always have a place in this community whenever and if ever you are ready for it. Love, Josh.